Folks, this video is sponsored by Mini Maker, a wonderful mini service where you can get fantastic 3D printed miniatures for all of your war games, whether it be Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar, Grimdark, Future, whatever it is you're playing, they will have something for you over on their store. So make sure you head over there and use the promo code Northern Exile to get yourself 10% off at checkout. They do fantastic models, and I'm currently awaiting a few tanks from them, which will absolutely revolutionise my Horus Heresy army, so can't wait for those. I use them myself, I can attest to the quality of their models, so make sure you head over there and give them some love. Alrighty, let's jump into some hobby nightmares today, shall we? We are doing so with our first one of the day, and that is from Bo. And we've not heard from Bo in quite a while. By the way, all issues with mic are now sorted. I have my guard here to make sure there is no popping sounds whenever I make a P sound or a B sound or whatever. So everything should be fine. All audio levels are fine. We have the software installed. Everything's wonderful. And you can now listen to my dulcet tones as I talk about Hobby Nightmares, which is awesome. So, let's jump in with Bo. And he says, greetings, O great hobby sage of Albion. That's probably the best one we've had so far. From your friendly neighbourhood war criminal. Alrighty. Writing to you as always from the world's favourite fanny, the Balkans. Since I've not written to you recently and you may not recall me easily, here's a bit of info to jog your memory. You may refer to me as Bo. The last story I sent in featured a Tyranid monster obsessed, flat as a washboard, goth chick that turned out to be a dude. I believe I referred to him as Sue. He's fine, by the way. We have become friends and he's become less of a win at all costs type of guy. He still cross-dresses a bit though. That's like the most Balkan response ever to a cross-dresser. Yeah, you're alright, but lose the dress. Since that time I have managed to pick up a reputation in my local club as being the demo game guy. Apparently I'm the club's go-to for having new players play against me, because I tend to bring in fluffy lists and care more about enjoying the game than actually winning. Following this portion of the email, you will find for your perusal consideration and potential record vocalization and subsequent publication 3 short excerpts, one of them hobby adjacent, from my recent life, that I have affectionately termed The Adventures of a Demo Game Guy. I'm very happy with myself that I got through that sentence without spluttering. That's good. Excellent. Alright. Let's jump in, shall we? Story the first. The Punchy Captain and the Catachan Invincibles. First thing though, Bo, if you're the one who people go to for demo games and you're the one people get, they send you new people, that is a big compliment to your playstyle, so well done to you. The Punchy Captain and the Catachan Invincibles. Several months back, I'm going to read that again because my brain just malfunctioned. Several months back, while the reputation of the demo game guy was still something fresh, I got asked to do a demo game for a new player, someone who's actually been in the hobby for quite a while. Someone I now consider a friend. Let's call him Stewie. Stewie was present in the club quite often. He enjoyed painting, and in fact, he's still one of the best mini painters I know. Fascinated by the Imperial Guard, he spent hours fine-tuning his camo patterns, adjusting the weathering on his artillery, making sure the muck off the tracks of his tanks was earthy enough, and so on. One day, he expressed a desire to get into the playing side of the hobby, and we were all very excited for it. Of course, I was asked to do his demo game for him. We set out to prep our armies. I prepped my salamanders, bringing some Infernus with the Librarian, a couple of Dreadnoughts for some anti-tank, and some nice close combat too. Some aggressors, and with them a Gravis Captain. One for who this excerpt is named, as well as some specialist troops and transports. Stewie got out his guard, picked out some Lehman Russes, a few Chimeras, a few line units, and some Catachans. And we set out into a game filled with laughter and betrayals by the dice gods. By the beginning of turn 3, Stewie's Catachans had made their way into my deployment zone, got shot at by my ballistic dreadnought that promptly missed every shot and then charged them and still only managed to down one of them. These brave members of the Astra Militarum would eventually bring the dreadnought down on the next turn. At that time my aggressors with their captain were just finishing off punching some chimeras off the field, when a Rogul Dawn appeared. In the next turn, by the time the aggressors closed range for broiling, the Rogel Dawn tank had basically wiped the unit, leaving just the lone Gravis captain and his strength 11 power fists. Charging in, the brave captain proceeded to assault the tank with ferocious blows, bringing the Rogel Dawn low down to a single wound before being mercilessly dispatched by the tank himself. We were having the time of our lives. So many rolls went in completely different ways than expected that by the end of the game, both of us were in laughing fits. Alright, that's cool. Story the second. But we've all had games like that. We've all had, like, do you know what I mean? Really memorable games where we've had... Sometimes it doesn't need, like, a massive hobby nightmare moment for something to be memorable. Sometimes it's just, you know what, I really enjoyed that game. And I was in a good mood that day, and that game put me in an even better mood, and I just feel really good about it. That's the kind of thing we want, right? Anyway, story the second. The demo game guy goes travelling. Some weeks back, there was a tournament held by a club in my nation's capital city. Now, usually this wouldn't be much of my concern because our club's tryhards and sweats would go to partake in their favourite pastime, tabletop esport plastic toy soldiers event. However, it turned out that due to some unforeseen circumstances, none of them could attend, and I was asked to go and represent the club as best I can. Annoyed and disgruntled, I agreed and set out on my trip, not wanting to let my club down. I prepped a list for the tournament, packed my minis, called myself a cab to get to the intercity bus station. With my luggage stowed down in the cargo area of the bus, off I went. Now, I'm not sure how much you know of the situations around the world, but around that time, there was a lot of student protests in my country, which meant a lot of detours, and if you've ever been to the Balkans, let's just say the roads were absolutely horrendous. And that's putting it mildly. In fact, it was so bad, we had to go off-road at one time, and by the time I got to the capital, my minis were in parts and pieces in the cargo area. So much so, I ended up having to spend the entire day before the tournament rebuilding and repainting my entire 2,000 point army. Dude, it is crazy, like we get hobby nightmares from these areas of the world where these kind of things happen. Like, you know, we get the loads from the UK, the US, Canada, Australia, right, you know, and it's all awesome. But then you do, you know, the hobby makes its way into some weird nooks and crannies, doesn't it? Right? This guy just like in the Balkans somewhere, just chilling, you know, in his bus, going across a field, load of rocks. Anyway, number 3. Screw your tournament, I'm going back to demo games. This series of incidents follows on directly from the previous excerpt. After spending almost 12 hours rushing through assembling, stripping, priming and painting 2,000 points worth of Marines the day before, the time for the tournament had finally arrived. The standard WTC rule set applied, and the WTC terrain and terrain layouts were used for it. It was meant to be a by-the-books tournament, 3 matches followed by scoring and determining who proceeds to the next round. What instead occurred is 3 farces, filled with cheating so blatant it almost made me want to quit the hobby entirely. The first opponent, a Black Templar playing Neckbeard, proceeded to slide his dice, measure from the front of the base at the start of his moves to the rear of the base for the end of the movement, call into question every single stratagem I used, insisted on us not needing a clock, then dragged the game out to 4 hours, claimed to have brought a fluffy list, and bringing a list that had nothing but Black Templars meta. Dude, if somebody says, I don't want to use a clock, you tell them that is against the rules, and they will forfeit the game if you don't use the clock. And then call over the TO. Call over the tournament organizer. Say, listen, in your rules it states that we're using clocks, right? This person does not want to use the clocks, which means he does not want to play by the rules. I think he should forfeit this game if he doesn't want to play with the clock. Problem solved. Problem solved. Play hardball. There is no excuse not to use a clock in tournament games. If you don't use a clock in tournament games, or the other person insists on not using one, they are up to no good. They are literally up to no good. Anyway. The follow-up wasn't much better. A Nurgle worshipper through and through, not only did he reek, I could swear that his minis had a distinct rancid smell all of their own. The saving grace was the third guy, an orc player, who knew what the words hygiene and fluffy actually meant. My salamanders got to have their day with Gazgul, bringing the big orc down to a single wound and shooting about 40% of his army off the table before finally succumbing and being tabled in the first half of turn 4. We had a handshake and I didn't even bother staying for the scoring. Screw tournaments, I'm going back to demo games. Warmest regards and wishes to you and all your family and friends. Sincerely, Bo. Thank you very much, Bo. Yeah, I was about to call you out there. I was about to. When you said, you know, finally I had a good game that I just happened to win. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was about to be like, well, that's not a very good way to look at your hobby. You know what I mean? Like, but you lost that final game. You shook his hand. You had fun. So it's not about winning to you, and that's fine. That is fine. And I get you. I'm with you. Now, since it is Friday, we have a role-playing hobby nightmare. The first one in a while. If you have a role-playing hobby nightmare, I would love to read it out on a Friday, so please send them in. I think what we're going to start doing with Hobby Nightmares, and I will do an announcement about this, is Monday will be general and Games Workshop based or general Hobby Nightmares, right? Monday's general Hobby Nightmares. In terms of, well, I'll read Hobby Nightmares on whatever day, do you know what I mean? But the main event, Hobby Nightmare, will have a theme to it, if you know what I'm saying. So Monday will be general Hobby Nightmares, so general stuff. Wednesday will be a Battle Report Hobby Nightmare, will be the main event. There'll be other Hobby Nightmares on there, but the main event will be a Battle Report one. And Friday will be a role-playing Hobby Nightmare, will be the main event. So let's jump into this one, because this, I think, from what I'm seeing the words Toreador, La Sombra, Gangrel here. So I'm thinking we're getting to a Vampire the Masquerade Hobby Nightmare. So I'm very excited for this one. I love reading these. It's like reading a little book. It's awesome. Alright. This one is from... Does he give me his name? He gives me his real name. I'm going to call you Bob. Alright? And he calls it Metagaming Yourself to Death. Part 1. Alright. Greetings, Mr. Northern. Hope your work settled down and you're able to breathe again. I am, thank you. I hope the family is all good and well. They are, thank you. This is another tale about Vampire the Masquerade and is an add-on or sequel from the other Hobby Nightmare I wrote about, the Good Doctor being betrayed by his coterie of mates, the ensuing violence and the fateful termination of my beloved psychopath. This story is probably better suited to a Friday reading as it covers some in-game themes which the algorithm will definitely not like. This is being written in 2 parts, both for space and because the second part hasn't actually happened yet. Oh! We have an unfolding Hobby Nightmare, I like this. The cast is as follows. Nick, the Gangrel veteran, now minus his German Shepherd familiar. Trev, the La Sombra politica. Jeff, the Toreador musician. And Mason, our storyteller. And myself, as Melania Demikos. Okay, alright. If you don't know anything about Vampire the Masquerade, by the way, Toreador are very artistic, you know, seductive vampires. La Sombra are able to manipulate shadows and are very good at, you know, politicking and stuff. And Gangrel are basically shamans and guys who have animal familiars, but they're also vampires. There we go. Moving on. Since I last left this story, the Good Doctor was crispy critted by the sun, and my new character rolled into town, Melania Demikos, the hit woman, bodyguard and general problem solver for the Hecata clan. Stunningly gorgeous rock chick with a fetish for violence and a 3-fold purpose in mind. Sounds like my kind of girl. Number 1. Acquire the Doctor's hospital for the clan's use, as they're planning on setting up in the region. Number 2. Get payback on the people responsible for the Doctor's death, on behalf of the Doctor's sire. You do not mess with a Shimshi child, okay? Or childer. Number 3. Dispose of 3 elders of the Sabbat so she can be given the secret of breaking her blood bond so she can get out from under the thumb of the Hecata. She rolls into the city, gets given a coterie by the prince to watchdog her, and the shenanigans begin. Throughout the following months, she provides much needed effective combat skills for battling the Second Inquisition and acts as a counterbalance to the Gangrel's antics, which frequently involve the physical bullying of the rest of the coterie. On multiple occasions, the Gangrel ended up face down or put into an arm lock when his temper would get the better of him in regards to the Toreador's words. Only once did this actually result in physical harm, as I messy crit on my roll. Her mindset throughout these mini-encounters was she needed a full team to cover all the bases she needed, and to assist with what she needed, and couldn't risk alienating any of the coterie. My mindset was not to make Nick, our gangrel player, feel like I was getting payback for his antics that resulted in my former character's death. Alright. Okay. This is a messy story already. So this guy Nick made your last character, bite the bullet, unfortunately. Okay. You also seem like you're being a bit of a fun police here. I don't know whether that's coming across to anyone reading or listening along or not. But having one player be like the arbiter of what is and isn't allowed because they're so much more powerful than everybody else is not a very good dynamic to get your group involved in my opinion. Anyway, we churn through the story. Slowly, piece by piece, she gets the information needed to formulate a hit list of people responsible for the good doctor's death. Discounting the gangrel immediately as a pawn, 2 names were at the top of her list: the Nosferatu Primogen Sniffler and the Prince of the City, Julian. One lucky dice roll from our Toreador led to Sniffler being baited into the gangrel's operating theatre. He's a vet with his own practice, where my character immediately opens up on him with a Dragon's Breath shotgun, reducing him to ashes in a single dice roll. I was going to delete this section, but it's a deciding factor on the latter half of the story, so please bear with me. In short, we get away with it. Nick flukes lying to the prince through his blood bond. The rest of us use ambiguous wording to hide the fact that I've just torched a high-ranking member of his court. That's awesome. As time passes, we find out the Second Inquisition is training child soldiers to do their dirty work through an orphanage and using the failed children as loyalty tests for the rest by forcing them to bury them in unmarked graves. Wow, that is dark. That is, Vampire goes hard, right? It tastefully goes hard. Like, I wouldn't do any of this in detail, but in a Vampire game, you can definitely hint that these things are going on. We intercept one of these missions and a fierce fight ensues. Our gangrel gets deployed as a furry hand grenade. Hefted straight through the truck's window by my character, he takes a colossal beating. The coterie is beaten up something chronic, and just about all of us are down humanity from killing the 2 armed kids with a riding shotgun. Not only that, but Melania has had lost one of her convictions by eviscerating, then draining to death, one of her touchstones. As a result, from the beating, the gangrel slips into torpor, and after consulting the rules, we find out he's out of commission for 1 year of in-game time. Not wanting to get in debt again to wake up his character, Nick chooses this as a time to roll for a new character instead. Okay. A Nosferatu is what he rolls, and not just any Nosferatu. Yeah, a Nosferatu is basically what you think it is. It's a really ugly vampire that can't pass as a human. The child of Sniffler, on a mission to find out what happened to his sire. At this moment, I messaged Mason, our storyteller, and asked him, and I quote, "He's seriously not going to go through this route, is he? And if he is, he's aware that my character, now missing 3 points of humanity, will just murder him as he's an obstacle in a path, right?" Unquote. Mason assured me it was fine, as I'd done a good job of pinning Sniffler's death on the gangrel who I had wrapped in change and dumped into a river flowing away from the city, so I could plausibly say, last I saw him, he was heading out of town. Once I was aware the prince and the sheriff were looking for him. Now, people don't realise, this is North talking, how clever that is. So in Vampire, people can make you tell the truth, right? People can, with NPCs with their powers, if you come across a vampire who is more powerful than you, they can literally force you to tell them the truth. But if you say, well, last time I saw him he was heading out of town, that's the truth. You can be very clever about your wording, That's really, really cool. That's a really clever thing to do. Alright, that was until the last session. Mason was a fair bit tipsy as he had been hitting up local wineries with his wife. He had wanted us to start tying up any loose ends, so we had rescued our Toreador's mortal daughter from the orphanage the session prior, and it was Melania's turn to speak this week. Earlier in the campaign, one of the city's elders had been getting his business wrecked by some ravers who'd been attending an event earlier. Our investigations found these raves were being run by a kindred, a vampire, who nobody in the city had heard of, and the elder had requested that we politely put an end to them in return for a major boon. Alright, boons, again, in Vampire are very important. Very, very important. If you are owed a boon by another vampire, they will literally drop what they're doing and give it to you, whatever it is. It's seen as that, you know, a lot of storytellers say it's a wishy-washy thing. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But good storytellers in Vampire the Masquerade, vampires will only give you a boon if, like, they trust you to not abuse it. Do you know what I mean? Because they will do it. Whatever you ask them to do, it's an insane amount of trust. Like, you say, like, you've done something for me, so I offer you a boon. Like, you call upon me, and I will come running. I will come and help you, right? No matter what it is. Boons are a thing that I really like in Vampire. They're one of the main mechanics of Vampire that hardly ever gets used, but people should use them. They're awesome, and they really do see like a. There's nothing cooler than a lawfully evil set of characters who are bound by an honor code and don't cross lines. You know, there's a reason why Leon the Professional is such a cool movie. Do you know what I'm saying? Because Leon, that assassin in that movie, is evil, but he's also got he sticks to his code. He sticks to his, no. You know, what is his code? No women, no kids. That's what he does. Anyway, Melania, seeing a chance to get another confirmed elder kill or two, looked into it and found two probable places. She would look into one, our new Nosferatu would look into the other. Explaining her arc that we could use the favour earned to assist with clearing out the SI nest, our new Nosferatu friend agreed and stepped out of the room. Figuring that she had enough dirt on both the Toreador and our resident La Sombra, who she'd been acting as body disposal for, she opened up about what one of her tasks was, being careful not to mention who she was performing them for, the Sabbat. In the process of explaining, both players reacted along the lines of, "So that's why you blew away Sniffler. Okay, that makes sense now." Melania confirms it and says she needs help getting this kindred taken care of, and if she's lucky, maybe the other elder if they're willing to help her. The Toreador Jeff, whose daughter we just rescued, is more than happy to help, and our resident La Sombra, who knows this other elder well, says something along the lines of, "That's a large vacuum that will need to be filled, of course. I'll help." It's at this point Nick pipes up. "I left my familiars in the room so I could catch all this. I keep forgetting to use it. He has the power, Unliving Hive, which makes him a giant beehive for flies and bugs, and not only that, each creature is a familiar. I start typing immediately to Mason. Stop, start typing again, and then cease for a final time. He makes a couple of rolls. His hunger jumps, and he starts burning willpower just to succeed. At the end of it, he's on hunger 3, and down to a willpower of 2. My character walks into the room with him, tries to have a word with him, and he has to make a frenzy check. He succeeds, but I insight him. His description of his reaction and the fact that he rolled badly makes it clear to my character something has made his player character riled up. I figure my character is the sort to have a laser focus on her job, so she would just have brushed it off and not thought too much about it. She leaves to investigate another potential rave location." Okay, what you're doing here is good role-playing. If you see what he did there, folks, he could have metagamed that, because he knows something is up. He could have metagamed it and said, "I know something's up here, so what's going on," right? But he didn't. He thought about his character. What would my character do here? Well, my character is laser focused on her mission, so if this guy is just, in his own bullshit, she's just going to hand wave it and move on. Right? I don't have time for this, right? Very good role-playing. It's at this point I'm trying to formulate a way to get Mason to intervene, as I don't mind a certain amount of metagaming, but this is not going to end well for one of us. Not wanting to disrupt play, I decided to put it off till later in the week. The rest of the session plays out with our new friend discovering the sheriff's child smuggling operation, him burning the last of his willpower to make sure he's not discovered by the sheriff, and him trying to arrange a meeting with the Nosferatu of the city to rat me out to. While this is happening, the rest of us find the rabble-rousing kindred. Jeff distracting him and with some moves on the dance floor, and then I apply a hefty dose of Dragon's Breath shotgun to the legs before drawing her Xiphos and decapitating him. The session ends with a text message from our friend saying we have to meet. Our friend being our Nosferatu mate over here. It's late and we all log off from Discord and hit the hay for the night. During the week, I see a continual stream of messages on our Facebook group about Nosferatu this, Nosferatu that, and I bite my tongue. This is until he mentions that it's going to be a general knowledge in the city that I assassinated their primogen. A part of my temper breaks at this point. And I say, and what makes you think your character is going to live to rat mine out? He burbles on about his plan and I interject again. What, you barely kept your frenzy under control last time? You now have no willpower, and to make matters worse, the exhaustion penalty, which happens when you're out of willpower, means you're rolling a single dice to resist a 2-dice check. So I offer an olive branch. I'd let him walk back his metagaming bullshit if he wanted to. At this point, he refuses too, saying, I achieved my ambition, I'll be fine. I responded with, well, better get comfortable with re-rolling again. Nick's character concepts are generally very cliche, but in a good way. What he does lack is the ability to make his characters good at what they do. Myself, on the other hand, tries to stick to simple concepts and then build the character from there, and as a result, Melania is a goddamn sledgehammer. Even without her shotgun, Xiphos, stakes, and 044 Colt, Anaconda, she is an absolute monster. A monster who Nick has seen beat rogue kindred into torpor before barehanded. So at this point, I have very few options as a character. The Nosferatu will frenzy, I have to beat it down, and with my character's lowered humanity, it will result in a player character death. North, what do I do? I really enjoy the game, and I don't mind Nick 95% of the time, but I'm really not keen on my enjoyment being compromised continually if he's seeing this game as a game of one-upsmanship, and frankly, one that he will not in the end win. Part 2, the aftermath, will follow once we play out this sorry tale. Thanks for all you do, keep it up, and I'll write again soon. Okay, so, my advice. Well, I have two things to say about this. I'm going to get my mic up here, sorry. I have two things to say about this. The first is that I've seen games go this way before, and it generally leaves the other players in the group cold, and they end up leaving. Right? So you will have two players, and you are engaging in this one-upsmanship, by the way, because you're feeding into it. You're trying to you're not metagaming, which is great, but you're also like baiting the bear, right? You're also in there saying, well, what makes you think you'll get away with that, and things like that. Do you know what I mean? When two players at the table start engaging in this kind of behaviour, it really does start to grate on the other players to the point that it kind of begins to break the party apart, which isn't great, which is the opposite of what you want to do. But in terms of you, I don't think you're actually doing anything too wrong. You're not metagaming. One thing I would do is, there's nothing wrong with talking outside of character, right? I would go to this guy and tell him what you think. Just say, listen, I don't know how you think this is going to go. Like, this isn't a game of one-upsmanship. I don't want your character to die, right? The way I built my character, Melania, she is going to be a beast to deal with, and you're not going to get away from this character. It's nothing to do with me. This is just the character, right? I don't want your character to die, so maybe we can work out something between us where we both kind of get what we want and nobody has to die, right? Maybe we do that away from the tabletop. Maybe the time has come to not treat the table as so sacrosanct, because a lot of people would say, well, I can't do that because then it would take away from the story of the role-playing campaign. But at the end of the day, I'd rather have a role-playing campaign than not have one. Do you know what I mean? So if you need to, go to him and be honest and say, listen, man, this is what I'm thinking. If you still want to go ahead with this, I will role-play it as best I can, and we'll let the chips fall where they may, right? But in all honesty, like, I don't see why your character needs to die. I don't get that at all. You've already lost one, you know? You've achieved what you wanted to achieve, as you've just said. That's fine. I think it was kind of metagamey, but let's find a way to make sure that both of our characters are okay and we can get out of this, in one piece. But if he refuses that compromise, and he's been metagaming this entire time, and all he's done is try to, even with his character choice, all he's done is try to ruin your story, then the gloves come off, my friend. Play it as honestly and as truthfully and as ruthlessly as you can, because that's what your character would do, right? So offer the olive branch and do a proper job of it this time, right? Do a proper job of it. Say, listen, I don't want your character to die. I don't want anybody's characters to die anymore, unless it's the NPCs killing us. So let bygones be bygones. What did your character want? Here's what my character wants. What does your character want? Right? All right. Let's work out a way that we can both get what we want, and then we move on to the session, so the DM can actually start, having fun with the group again. If that's not what he wants, and because his cards are on the table now, he's trying to stop you, right? The cards are on the table. If that's not what he wants, then the gloves come off, and you can do a player kill, and that's fine, right? That's what I would do. I'd give one more chance to parlay, but let me know how this goes. Metagaming yourself to death. Let me know how this goes. This sounds really awesome. So I want to see the second part. All right, cool. That is Hobby Nightmares for this Friday. I'll be back on Sunday for another live stream. I can't remember which Legion it is. It is the 14th Legion. So what Legion are we doing? Give me a second. Space Marine. I think it's not Thousand Suns. It is Death Guard. So we'll be doing the Mortarion and Death Guard on Sunday. So tune into that. It's going to be fun. I will speak to you very, very soon with some more Hobby Nightmares on Monday. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll speak to you soon. Have a good one. Bye now.